Hi guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com, and I'm going to do another quick weekly recap of all MMO news and announcements for the week ending September 20th, 2015. This is episode 9 of the news recap, and the first bit of news that we're going to take a look at this week comes from Ghost in the Shell Online, which is now apparently called First Assault. Nexon had originally announced the game as Ghost in the Shell Online, but now that they've decided on First Assault. Ghost in the Shell will remain the game's title, however, but they figured Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Online First Assault was a bit too lengthy, so they decided to simplify it. The game is being developed by Neopal, the same studio that made Dungeon Fighter Online, the company's most profitable title. Closed beta testing for the game is set to begin October 1st and will run until the 4th, with additional tests coming afterwards. Those players that end up participating in the closed beta will get an exclusive First Assault weapon skin. As a fan of FPS games, I'm definitely looking forward to this one, as it looks quite fast-paced and fun. Next up, a game we haven't brought up in the weekly news recap in a while, Vindictus. Season 3, Episode 2 for the game officially launched, which continues the game's storyline and introduces the new raid Braha, which has players facing off against an enemy that looks straight out of Attack on Titan, except with a bit more undead/abomination flavor. And despite us not giving the game much coverage, it's still a pretty solid game that's been going quite strong for a while. And for those that haven't heard of Vindictus, it's an action MMORPG similar to DFO in that it's very much hub-based, but it does have really pretty graphics, and Nexon does really make cool trailers for it, as you can see. Also in related Nexon news, Mabinogi Duel, a spin-off card game from Mabinogi, has soft-launched in select regions, meaning the game can now be played in Australia, Canada, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Malaysia on both iOS and Android, with a global launch expected later this year. And as you can clearly see from the video playing in the background, Mabinogi Duel is Nexon's attempt at getting in on the collectible card game craze, which exploded in popularity after Hearthstone started minting lots of money with their success. Now, I don't typically play mobile games myself, but I do like me my Hearthstone, and I'll give Mabinogi Duel a try when it actually launches this year. Until then, I gotta wait though. Moving right along, some interesting news from WebZen regarding Elite Lord of Alliance, or Eloa Online. Apparently, WebZen partnered with developer Npixsoft to push for a Western release of Eloa, which is interesting because the game was already available in the West as Inspirit Online from Game Release Entertainment. Basically what happened, as I understand it, is Inspirit Online is basically a bootleg version of Eloa. So Inspirit basically stole all the assets and copied the game and just called it Inspirit and brought it to the West without consulting with the game's developer, which was Npixsoft. And I'm pretty sure this is how it rolled down, because if you look at the official Korean website for Eloa Online, that's the version of the game that's being published in Korea. The one in Korea is developed by Npixsoft, and this Game Release Entertainment company doesn't really exist in Korea. I mean, it's obviously a knockoff of that game. So the authentic version of the game is most certainly the Npixsoft version called Eloa. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Inspirit Online. I suspect it's going to fade away into oblivion when WebZen actually launches the official version. Next up, a bit of news from South Korea. Apparently, Echo of Seoul is shutting down in its home country of South Korea through the publisher Han Game, which is one of the biggest publishers in South Korea. The fact that the Korean version of the game is shutting down shouldn't be that big of a deal for Western users, because Han Game has actually been gravitating towards more of a mobile approach, so they've been shutting down almost all their client-based games that aren't doing amazing. I suspect that the Korean version will relaunch through another publisher, but even if that doesn't happen, the game will still stay afloat through the US and China. But if the Chinese version also shuts down, then there's bad news for North America. But as is, I don't think North American players of the game should really have to worry about it. But still, it's never good news when a game shuts down in its home country. And I'm not gonna lie, this trailer for Echo of Seoul looks way cooler than the actual game. Next up, another bit of news from Nexon. The team-based FPS Dirty Bomb launched a new update which introduced a brand new merc to the game called Epidemic. For those that haven't played Dirty Bomb, it's a game where every character you play has their own set of abilities and their own guns. So every new merc or hero in the game is kind of a big deal. And Epidemic has a really cool ability where it can actually self-res. Pretty sure I've never seen that in any other FPS game before, so that's definitely interesting. As a doctor, Phoenix can also AoE heal his teammates as well as revive them. As with any game update, there are also dozens of in-game bug fixes and balance changes. Next up, a bit of news from World of Tanks. Apparently this time World of Tanks is launching on the PS4 after its initial run on Xbox 360 and Xbox One. The game will of course be free to play and not require an active PlayStation Plus subscription to play. Those considering whether playing the PS4 version should know that anyone who plays in the PS4 version will have access to 2 exclusive maps for a limited time, and those with PlayStation Plus subscriptions will receive a free premium tank, exclusive camouflage, and 3 days of premium account status. Now this is definitely a good move for free-to-play gaming to start embracing consoles. My only real complaint is that this will not be cross-platform compatible with any other version of the game, so you'll only be playing against other PlayStation 4 users. It's not that big of a deal considering World of Tanks is super popular, but I'd much rather play on a big server with everybody else. But unfortunately that is not the case. Up next, a bit of news from Jagex regarding RuneScape. Well, DarkScape now, apparently. Jagex apparently launched a new version of RuneScape called DarkScape, which is focused on hardcore PvP, with an emphasis on hardcore, because they basically took RuneScape and they added an EVE Online style rule set to it, where there's open PvP as well as full loot. It's one of the only full loot MMORPGs out there now. The new server is completely free to play, but those willing to shell out for a subscription gain XP 50% faster, have double the bank space, and a few other goodies. The game is quite experimental right now, and Jagex has kind of passed it off as its own game. However, it's still just RuneScape with a more hardcore focus. However, it could be something much different later on, because the devs have promised to take player input into account as the game evolves. As a big fan of Ultima Online and pretty much hardcore PvP and full loot in the games, I'm curious to see how well the game will do. Moving right along, we got a bit of news from Trove. The news is that the Shadow Tower now rises in Trove, and the Shadow Tower update introduces quite a bit of features to the game, most notably the new Lunar Lancer class, which is a fox class with a grappling hook and a polearm. Aside from the new class is also the new Shadow Tower. Players can now craft a Shadow Tower portal into their club and they gain access to this new area. Each tower contains a mix of 4 Shadow Arenas and dungeons with a Shadow Titan boss at the end. Each floor grants unique bonuses once a week. As with any update, there's also numerous bug fixes and small balance tweaks. Since launching on Steam, Trove is still doing remarkably well with over 20,000 peak users daily, which is quite incredible actually. Up next, the over 15-year-old MMORPG EverQuest announced a brand new expansion to the game called The Darkened Sea. The new expansion adds new raid zones to the game, targeted for level 105 players, as well as 2 instance raid zones for players level 75 and higher. The 2 new zones are the Plane of Fear and the Plane of Hate. These 2 new zones are called level agnostic, meaning everybody in the party automatically gets leveled up to the highest level in the group, so everyone is of equal strength while going in. And this is actually the 22nd, I believe, expansion for EverQuest since its launch. But anybody who pre-orders the game will get access to all the expansions before this included. So anyone that wants to play EverQuest or just get back into it, this is the expansion to buy. Up next, some good news for WarMode fans, if there are any actual fans of the game. I actually kind of like it, so I guess I might be a little bit of a fan. WarMode now returns back to Steam. It was taken down, I believe, a week or so ago for unknown reasons, but now it is back for good, and that's really the only news. WarMode is back. Not really any updates around the game, it's just nobody knows why it went down, and it is back for good. And the game is doing surprisingly well on Steam. Last time I checked, over 1,000 players online, which is definitely surprising. Up next, a bit of sad news from Dead Island Epidemic, and the news is that the game will be shutting its doors on October 15th, 2015 for good. Those who have been following the development of Dead Island Epidemic should not be too surprised, because there were never really that many players in the game. The writing was already on the wall for a while. Yeah, so the game will be gone for good on October 15th. And definitely been disappointing because the game's only been out since November 20th, 2014, so it's less than a year old and it's already shutting down. The next and last bit of news this week is that the obscure action MMORPG that plays a bit like Diablo but with guns, Metal Reaper Online, made its way to Steam this week. I already did a first look on the game earlier, and the game's translations are actually quite awful. In fact, the game's Steam description reads, I quote, Metal Reaper Online is based on gun shooting battles MMORPG. With post-apocalyptic background, merging military shooting contents and MMORPG to give various contents and better accessibility. Game material and control are very similar with FPS and serve comfortable contents. They like using the word contents, but it just sounds so silly. But yeah, that's it for MMO news and announcements this week, and I'll see you guys for the podcast tomorrow. Later, guys.